It was 8 p.m., and I was about to authorize the final installment on a limited edition timepiece in my virtual cart, only for the transaction to flash red. Declined. Before I could even process what was happening, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from Connor, the newly appointed chief financial officer, hired by my wife Meredith. "Hey Wesley, just letting you know I suspended your corporate card," Connor said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Meredith asked me to tighten the leash on all personal expenditures. Honestly, you're at home doing chores. You don't have clients to impress or deals to close. Why on earth do you need a $50,000 watch? I actually just ordered you a kid's smartwatch on Amazon. $15. It's got a step counter and everything. Perfect for you." He hung up. A second later, a text popped up with a screenshot of the order confirmation. The delivery note read, "Moisturizer for Wesley." It was so absurd it was almost funny. Then came another text. "Make sure to clear any future purchases with me first." The sheer audacity. I was spending my own money, and I was expected to clear it with an outsider? He was using my wealth to lecture me on frugality. Without a word, I forwarded the screenshot straight to Meredith. "Fire this Connor guy before the end of the day, or tomorrow I'll have you packed up and sent back to shoveling manure in Idaho." Wow, Wesley. Going straight to the boss to complain? Really? When my phone rang again, it was Connor, his voice carrying a cold, mocking chuckle. "Why do you have Meredith's phone?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the heat rising in my chest. "Put her on." "Meredith is in a closed-door meeting," Connor said, his tone thick with unearned superiority. "She's currently working her tail off to secure our next 8-figure deal. She doesn't have time for your tantrums. She's out there earning the millions while you're at home living the dream. Aren't you satisfied? Unfreeze my card, Connor. Now." "Sorry, pal. Can't do that." Connor scoffed. "Meredith's personal accounts, corporate accounts, they're all under my management now. Oh, by the way, I canceled your golf club membership and your private gym pass. Refunded them right back into the company's operating capital. And that housekeeper you have, 15 grand a month, is absurdly lavish. She's been let go." I froze. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Who the hell did Connor think he was, coming into my life and dictating terms? Who gave you the authority to interfere in my private life? Meredith did, obviously. Connor sounded entirely self-righteous. "The company is in a hypergrowth phase. Every dollar counts. Your extravagant spending habits have to go. I'm not just monitoring the corporate accounts, I'm supervising you. From now on, any grocery runs require physical receipts brought directly to my office. Anything over $100 won't be approved." He didn't even give me a chance to respond. Wesley, Meredith is a self-made, brilliant CEO. She's worth 9 figures. There are plenty of young, highly educated, ambitious men waiting in line for a shot at her. The only reason you're still holding on to the title of her husband is because she's a sentimental woman. He hung up. When I tried calling back, it went straight to voicemail. Blocked. My hands were shaking. I was about to call my driver to head to the office when the front door swung open. Martha, our housekeeper, was standing in the foyer. Her eyes were red, and she was clutching a single suitcase. "Mr. Pendleton," Martha said, her voice trembling. "That new CFO called. He told me to pack my things and get out immediately. He said if I stayed, he'd have me arrested for trespassing." Did I do something wrong? Seeing Martha cry broke something inside me. "You did nothing wrong, Martha. Put your bag down. No one is kicking you out of this house." I dialed Meredith's personal cell. Turned off. "Perfect. Beautifully done, Meredith. You're so desperate to play the role of the ruthless female tech tycoon that you've handed over the keys to a complete stranger." Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was the Presbyterian Hospital downtown. "Mr. Pendleton? We're calling regarding your father's VIP oncology suite. The automated payment failed today. If the balance isn't settled by tomorrow morning, we'll have to suspend his targeted therapy. Please come down and resolve this as soon as possible." My heart dropped. My dad was diagnosed with early-stage lung cancer 2 weeks ago and was scheduled for surgery. His medical bills were tied directly to our family trust account. How could it possibly fail? "I'll be right there." I sped all the way to the hospital's private wing. As I approached my dad's VIP suite, I saw nurses wheeling his bed out into the hallway. Connor was standing there, arms crossed, barking orders at the orderly team. "Hurry it up. A VIP suite costs thousands a day. It's a complete waste of company resources. Move him to a standard 6-person ward. He won't die from sharing a room." The blood in my veins turned to ice. I charged forward and shoved Connor backward. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Who gave you permission to touch my father?" Connor stumbled, catching himself against the wall. He glared at me with pure disgust. "Wesley, I just did a deep dive into the company books. Do you know how much cash is being funneled to this hospital every month? Your father is occupying a luxury VIP suite and using top-tier imported experimental drugs. You're literally bleeding Meredith dry." My fists clenched so hard my knuckles turned white. Connor, that is a private family account specifically set up for my father's care. You don't earn a single penny. It's all Meredith's money anyway, Connor sneered, rolling his eyes. I've frozen that account. Meredith said the company is launching a new project and liquidity is tight. All non-essential expenses are cut. Period. The head nurse looked at me apologetically. Mr. Pendleton, if the account isn't funded, our hands are tied. If you don't have the money, go to the general ward. Connor raised his voice, making sure everyone in the corridor could hear. You're taking Meredith's hard-earned cash and throwing it away on luxury healthcare? For an old man, basic insurance-covered medicine is fine. Spending tens of thousands on imported shots is just pure selfishness. I've already downgraded him. A bed in a 6-room ward is only $50 a night. Much more appropriate for his station. My father was trembling with anger, clutching my hand. Wes, Dad, don't say a word. I've got this. I squeezed his hand, then turned a murderous gaze onto Connor. Connor, you're playing with my father's life. Oh, come on, Wesley. Don't play the victim card with me. If your family can't afford treatment, that's your problem. Don't try to guilt-trip Meredith. Connor pulled out a crumpled wad of cash from his designer briefcase and tosses it at my feet. Here's $500 from my own pocket. Go buy the old man some vitamins. Stop leeching off your wife. A parasite should know its place. Whispers broke out among the onlookers in the hallway. So he's just a trophy husband spending her cash. How shameless. His wife works so hard, and he's out here demanding VIP rooms. That executive is so responsible. Saving the company money. Connor basked in the murmurs, a smug grin plastered across his face. He pulled out his phone and started recording a video of my dad and me. I'm going to send this to Meredith. Let her see how entitled you really are. Once she realizes what a drag you are on her life, she'll kick you to the curb where you belong. I looked at him, my voice dangerously calm. Remember this moment, Connor. Remember every single word you just said. I turned to the head nurse. Put my father back in the VIP suite. The bills will be paid in full tomorrow morning. I instructed the orderlies to wheel my dad back. Connor, seeing himself ignored, stomped his foot in frustration. Wesley Pendleton. You just wait. The next morning, I took a cab straight to the Aegis Group headquarters. The moment the elevator doors opened on the penthouse floor, 2 burly security guards blocked my path. This is the executive wing. No visitors without an appointment. I looked at them. Fresh faces. I'm Wesley Pendleton. Step aside. Mr. Connor gave strict orders. We have an important board meeting today. No unauthorized personnel allowed. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Connor emerged, surrounded by an entourage of department managers. He spotted me, and a sarcastic smirk spread across his face. Well, look who it is. Our resident house husband who only knows how to swipe credit cards. The managers chuckled in unison. Mr. Connor, who is this? A newly hired receptionist asked mockingly. This is Meredith's useless husband, Connor announced loudly. The guy who tried to blow 50 grand on a luxury watch 2 nights ago. A total deadweight. He walked over to me, looking down his nose. Wesley, if you came here to beg Meredith to unfreeze your cards, save your breath. The company's financial reins are entirely in my hands now. In this building, what I say goes. What you say goes. I let out a dry, humorless laugh, looking around at the spectators. Do all of you believe he's the one in charge here? Obviously, the receptionist scoffed, rolling her eyes. Mr. Connor is Mrs. Pendleton's right-hand man. He's saved this company millions. Who do you think you are, coming in here and causing a scene? Connor smugly adjusted his tie and turned to the guards. What are you waiting for? Meredith is about to arrive with our major clients for an inspection. Throw this trash out of here. Don't let him ruin the company's image. The 2 guards grabbed my shoulders, aggressively dragging me toward the elevator. Get your hands off me. I struggled, but my physical strength was no match for 2 trained security guards. Face reality, Wesley, Connor called out behind me, his voice dripping with malice. Meredith is sick of you. You're completely useless. You think you're still the powerful husband of a high-flying CEO? In this company, Meredith is God. And I am her prophet. The staff watched me get manhandled, murmuring and snickering under their breath. Look at him, the spoiled husband. How pathetic. Meredith is so brilliant. How did she end up with a loser like this? Mr. Connor is so capable. Honestly, they look like a much better match. Suddenly, the chime of the private executive elevator rang out. A group of men in bespoke suits stepped out. Leading them was Meredith, who had been missing in action for 36 hours. What is going on here? Why is there so much noise? Meredith demanded, her voice sharp and authoritative. Connor's arrogant demeanor instantly vanished. He put on a victimized, trembling expression and ran to Meredith's side. Meredith, thank goodness you're here. Connor's eyes welled up with fake tears. Wesley, He came here to make a scene. All I did was try to save the company some money by canceling his luxury cards, and he came barging in, screaming, threatening me, and trying to lay hands on me. I was worried he'd ruin the meeting with your VIP clients, so I had security escort him out. Meredith's face darkened. She stepped through the crowd and stood in front of me. Looking at my disheveled state, there was no sympathy in her eyes. Only cold, deep-seated embarrassment and disdain. Wesley, have you lost your mind? She snapped. It's one thing to throw tantrums at home, but bringing your drama to my office? Connor is a highly sought-after CFO whom I personally recruited. He froze your accounts under my direct authorization. I looked at the woman I've shared a bed with for 5 years. A wave of nausea washed over me. Meredith, is this really how you want to play this? I asked quietly. He cut off my father's cancer treatment. He fired Martha. Were you aware of that? Meredith didn't even flinch. The company is at a critical juncture. We need every ounce of liquidity we can get. Connor is doing his job. He's trimmed millions in waste. Instead of reflecting on your own uselessness, you come here to bully my CFO? Apologize to Connor. Now, Connor stood behind Meredith, a victorious, sneering smirk playing on his lips. His eyes were filled with smug triumph. Seeing their boss take a stand, the surrounding employees immediately chimed in. The husband is so incredibly selfish. He has no idea how hard Meredith works. Exactly. He needs to apologize to Mr. Connor and stop embarrassing himself. Meredith assumed my silence was fear. She scoffed. Wesley, I'm warning you. Apologize to Connor right now and go home. Otherwise, don't expect another dime of allowance from me. I felt a laugh bubbling up from my chest. It started as a chuckle and turned into a full laugh. I shook off the guard's grip and stood tall. Meredith, have you sat in that throne for so long that you actually believe it belongs to you? Meredith blinked, momentarily taken aback. What nonsense are you spouting? Have you gone mad? Who's mad? You're about to find out. I pulled out my phone and dialed a direct line. Mr. Adler, bring the legal and audit teams up to the penthouse floor. Now. I hung up. Within 30 seconds, the doors to the private express elevator slid open with a heavy thud. Mr. Adler, the company's second-largest shareholder, stepped out, flanked by a team of stone-faced corporate lawyers and forensic auditors. Meredith's expression shifted. Mr. Adler? What is the meaning of this? I didn't call a board meeting today. Mr. Adler completely ignored her. He walked straight past her, stopped in front of me, and bowed deeply. The entire team is here, Mr. Pendleton. We await your instructions. The entire floor fell into a suffocating, dead silence. Every jaw in the room dropped in sheer, unadulterated shock. The silence on the executive floor was so dense that the hum of the HVAC system sounded like a roaring engine. Meredith stood frozen, her designer pumps practically glued to the Italian marble floor. Her mouth opened, closed, and opened again. She looked at Arthur Adler, a veteran financier whose name carried enough weight to shift market indexes, and then at me, as if her mind were frantically trying to assemble a puzzle whose pieces refused to fit. Arthur, what are you doing? Meredith stammered, her authoritative CEO persona cracking down the middle. Why are you bowing to him? He's my husband. He doesn't even have a title in this company. Mr. Adler slowly straightened his posture, adjusting his gold-rimmed reading glasses. He looked at Meredith with a mixture of cold disappointment and profound pity. Correction, Mrs. Vance Pendleton, Adler said, his voice ringing clearly across the open floor. You are the chief executive officer of Aegis Group. But Mr. Wesley Pendleton is the founder, sole beneficiary of the Pendleton Sovereign Trust, and owner of 85% of the voting equity in this enterprise. A collective, sharp gasp rippled through the gathered crowd of executives, receptionists, and security guards. Connor's face didn't just lose color, it turned a sickly, translucent shade of green. He took a staggering step backward, nearly tripping over the edge of the reception rug. What? Connor choked out, his fingers trembling as he clutched his leather briefcase. No, that's impossible. He's a house husband. He doesn't work. I reviewed the payroll. You reviewed the employee payroll, Mr. Vance, Adler replied smoothly, gesturing to the senior legal partner standing beside him. You failed to review the capital structure filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission. 5 years ago, when Aegis Group went public, Mr. Pendleton placed 85% of the company into a blind trust to allow his wife to serve as the public face of the brand. Adler turned his head, his eyes cutting like scalpels as he looked directly at Meredith. A decision he made out of love, Adler added quietly. A decision that appears to have been severely abused. Meredith's breath hitched. She looked at me, her dark eyes wide with a terrifying mixture of shock, confusion, and sudden, primal panic. Wes, she whispered, her hands shaking as she took a tentative step toward Me. Wes, why didn't you tell me? Why would you keep something like this from me? For 5 years. I stood straight, brushing a speck of dust off my lapel. My voice was smooth, devoid of anger, and completely devoid of warmth. I didn't keep it from you, Meredith, I said, looking into her eyes. On the night I proposed to you in that cheap diner in Boise, I handed you a leather folder containing the trust agreement. You skimmed the first page, laughed, and said, I don't care about legal mumbo-jumbo, Wes. I just want to build a life with you. You never bothered to read the rest. Meredith flinched as if she had been physically struck. The memory clearly slammed into her, shattering the illusion of self-made grandeur she had spent 5 years constructing. And over the last 2 years, I continued, taking a step toward her, as the press started calling you the tech queen of the West and the 9-figure mogul. You started believing your own press releases. You forgot who provided the seed capital. You forgot who signed the bank guarantees. You forgot who built the algorithms that power every single product this company sells. Wes, please, Meredith begged, her voice cracking. I didn't know. Connor told me. Mr. Adler, I interrupted, completely ignoring her, turning my attention to the senior shareholder. Sir. Adler replied instantly. Initiate emergency protocol 09. I commanded flatly. As majority shareholder, I am exercising my right to suspend the executive powers of the CEO and CFO effective immediately, pending a full forensic audit of all corporate and trust accounts. Connor let out a high-pitched squeak of pure terror. You can't do that. I'm the CFO. I have a contract. Your contract, Mr. Adler's legal lead cut in smoothly, pulling a crisp white document from his leather binder, contains a standard morality and breach of fiduciary duty clause. Mr. Pendleton, we have already pulled the digital logs from Presbyterian Hospital. The lawyer looked at Connor with an expression of absolute disgust. 48 hours ago, Mr. Connor attempted to manually override a private medical trust account explicitly protected under federal law. He used corporate credentials to force the eviction of a senior patient from a critical care unit, resulting in documented physical distress. The lawyer turned to the 2 uniformed police officers who had stepped out of the express elevator behind Adler's team. Officers, the lawyer said, pointing a finger at Connor. That is the man. We are pressing formal charges for reckless endangerment, corporate fraud, and unauthorized access of a private financial trust. The 2 officers marched forward, their heavy boots thudding against the marble floor. Wait. No. Meredith, help me. Connor screamed, thrashing wildly as the officers grabbed his arms and forced them behind his back. The sharp, cold click of handcuffs engaging echoed through the silent lobby. Meredith, you authorized it. You told me to cut his expenses. You said he was leeching off you. Meredith backed away from Connor as if he carried a deadly plague. I didn't tell you to touch his father. You lied to me, Connor. You knew. Connor shrieked as the officers dragged him toward the elevator, his designer suit rumpled, his hair wildly messy. You wanted him humbled. You told me you were sick of looking at his boring face. You hypocritical bitch. The elevator door slid shut, cutting off Connor's hysterical screaming into absolute, suffocating silence. The executive floor remained frozen. The receptionists, managers, and security guards who had spent the last 30 minutes mocking me were now cowering behind their desks, their faces ghostly, pale, terrified to catch my eye. I looked at the 2 burly guards who had grabbed my shoulders earlier. They were shaking violently, their hands clasped nervously in front of their belts. You too, I said softly. They flinched, snapping to attention like frightened soldiers. Yes, sir. Collect your belongings from security, I said, my voice ice cold. You are terminated, effective immediately. If I see either of you on Pendleton property again, you will be arrested for trespass. Yes, Mr. Pendleton. Thank you, sir. Sorry, sir. They babbled, turning and practically sprinting down the service stairwell. I turned my eyes back to Meredith. She stood alone in the center of the lobby, surrounded by the wreckage of her arrogance. Her expensive power suit looked like an armor that had lost its shine, her eyes welling with silent, desperate tears. Wes, she whispered, her voice trembling. Please, let's go into my office. Let's talk about this privately. We're husband and wife. We were husband and wife, Meredith. I corrected her, my tone completely flat. Until you let an outsider cut off my father's lung cancer treatment to save $50 a night. I didn't know about the hospital. She sobbed, stepping forward, reaching her trembling hands out toward me. I swear to God, Wes, I didn't know Connor went to the hospital. He told me he was just cutting your credit card limit. And you thought that was acceptable? I asked, raising an eyebrow. You thought it was acceptable for a man you hired 3 weeks ago to monitor my grocery receipts? To fire Martha, who raised me after my mother died, to treat me like a dog on a leash in my own home? Meredith bit her lip so hard a bead of crimson appeared on her pale skin. Had no answer, because she knew deep down that she had enjoyed every second of it. She had enjoyed feeling superior. She had enjoyed believing that she was the kingmaker and I was merely her house pet. Mr. Adler, I said, stepping past Meredith toward the boardroom doors. Gather the board. We're holding the audit now. Right away, Chairman, Adler replied, following me alongside his team of 10 lawyers and forensic accountants. Meredith tried to follow us into the grand mahogany boardroom, but Mr. Adler's legal lead stepped smoothly into the doorway, blocking her path with a professional, unyielding arm. I'm sorry, Mrs. Vance Pendleton, the lawyer said coldly. As a suspended executive under active internal investigation, your presence in this meeting is a compliance violation. Please wait in the lounge. The heavy oak doors slammed shut in her face. Inside the boardroom, the real work began. For 3 hours, Adler's team dismantled every ledger, every wire transfer, and every contract approved by Meredith and Connor over the last 6 months. The findings were staggering. Connor hadn't just been trimming waste. He had been actively diverting corporate capital into an offshore shell company registered in the Cayman Islands under his own name, an account he planned to drain the moment Aegis finalized its upcoming 8-figure acquisition. And Meredith, blind in her own hubris, had signed off on every single transfer, without reading the fine print, entirely intoxicated by Connor's flattery and his promises of hypergrowth. She nearly bankrupted our primary operational reserve, Mr. Pendleton, the lead forensic auditor reported, sliding a thick tablet across the table to me. If these transfers had continued for another 2 weeks, the company would have defaulted on its primary credit facility with Chase Bank. I looked at the numbers on the screen. $10 million. That was how much Connor had successfully diverted while Meredith was busy giving keynote speeches about her self-made success. Revoke her signing authority permanently, I instructed flatly, setting the tablet down. Draft the formal termination papers for the board to sign at noon, and prepare the civil lawsuit to reclaim every asset granted to her under the corporate incentive program. Mr. Adler leaned back in his leather chair, looking at me with deep respect. And the marriage, Wesley? I pulled a pen from my inner pocket. Draft the divorce petition, I said softly. Enforce the prenuptial agreement. The prenuptial agreement was simple. In the event of gross infidelity, financial fraud, or moral turpitude, Meredith Vance forfeited all claims to the Pendleton Family Trust, all non-voting shares in Aegis Group and all residential properties held under the family name. She would leave with exactly what she brought into the marriage 5 years ago, a single suitcase and a train ticket back to Idaho. At 1 p.m., I stepped out of the boardroom. The executive lobby was silent. The staff had returned to their cubicles, working in a state of muted, disciplined terror. Meredith was sitting on the leather sofa near reception, her head buried in her hands. When she heard my footsteps, she snapped her head up, scrambling to her feet so fast she nearly lost her balance. Wes, she gasped, her eyes red and swollen. What did the board say? Mr. Adler stepped out behind me, holding a crisp manila folder. He pulled out 2 document stacks and laid them on the reception counter. Mrs. Vance Pendleton, Adler announced formally, by unanimous vote of the Board of Directors, you have been removed from your position as Chief Executive Officer of Aegis Group for gross negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, and enabling corporate embezzlement. Meredith went deathly pale. No, Arthur, please. You can't fire me. I'm the face of this company. Not anymore, Adler said flatly. Your corporate access is revoked. Your company vehicle has been repossessed in the parking garage. And these, Adler tapped the second stack of papers, are the divorce papers filed by Mr. Pendleton, alongside an emergency eviction notice for the penthouse on 5th Avenue. Meredith looked at me, her eyes wild with grief, horror, and sheer disbelief. She lunged forward, falling to her knees right in front of me, grabbing the hems of my trousers with trembling hands. Wes, please. I'm sorry. I was wrong, she wept hysterically, bowing her head, until her forehead touched my leather shoes. I was blinded by Connor. Tricked me. He made me feel like I was special. Wes, I love you. Remember Idaho? Remember the little house we dreamed about? I looked down at the woman kneeling at my feet. 5 years ago, I would have burned the world down to protect her. I would have given her everything. And I had given her everything. I had built a $100 million kingdom, placed a crown on her head, and stepped into the shadows so she could shine. And the moment she felt the weight of that crown, she used it to crush my father, my home, and my dignity. I remember Idaho, Meredith, I said softly, my voice carrying a quiet, tragic finality. which is why I think it's fitting that you return there. I gently, firmly pulled my pant legs out of her desperate grip. Your flight leaves at 6 tomorrow morning, I said, looking down at her. I've instructed my assistant to purchase your ticket. Coach class. $50. Wes. No. Please. Wes, she shrieked, weeping openly on the marble floor as Mr. Adler called security to escort her out of the building. I didn't look back. I walked straight to the executive elevator, took it down to the private garage, and climbed into my waiting town car. Where to, Mr. Pendleton? The driver asked respectfully. Presbyterian Hospital, I replied, leaning my head back against the leather seat. And call Martha. Tell her to come back home. Her salary is doubled. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, I walked into the VIP oncology wing of Presbyterian Hospital. The hallway was quiet, spotless, and smelled faintly of fresh lilies. As I approached my father's suite, I saw the head nurse standing outside the door, adjusting a digital infusion pump. When she spotted me, she immediately bowed her head with deep, embarrassed respect. Mr. Pendleton, I am so terribly sorry about this morning, she stammered, her face red. We had no idea that Mr. Connor was acting without authority. It's fine, I said gently, patting her arm. You were just following orders. Is my father asleep? He just took his medication, sir. He's doing wonderful. The imported targeted therapy was administered an hour ago. I pushed the heavy oak door open and stepped inside. The VIP suite was spacious, flooded with warm afternoon sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. My father was sitting up in bed, wearing a soft cardigan, sipping a cup of warm broth. Sitting on the armchair beside him was Martha, wearing a clean apron, smiling as she peeled an apple for him. When Martha saw me walk in, her eyes welled with tears. She set the knife down and stood up quickly. Mr. Wesley. Welcome home, Martha. I smiled warmly, walking over and giving the old woman a tight, affectionate hug. I'm sorry for the trouble. Oh, nonsense, child, Martha sniffled, wiping her eyes with her apron. That nasty little man got what was coming to him. I saw it on the financial news. Downstairs, they showed him being let out in handcuffs. My father let out a soft, wheezing laugh from the bed, setting his broth down. Wes, my dad said softly, looking at me with sharp, proud eyes. Is it over? It's over, Dad, I said, walking over to his bedside and taking his calloused, warm hand in mine. The company is clean. The house is quiet. And no one is ever touching your treatment again. My father squeezed my hand tightly, a tear trickling down his weathered cheek. I never liked that girl, Wes. You were always too good for her. I know, Dad, I chuckled softly. I know. Epilogue. 1 year later. Spring in the city arrived with a bright, sunlit brilliance. The front page of the Wall Street Journal featured a striking headline. Aegis Group posts record Q1 growth following Chairman Wesley Pendleton's return to executive leadership. Inside the corner penthouse office of Aegis Tower, which had been completely redecorated with warm oak, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and comfortable leather armchairs, I sat behind my mahogany desk, reviewing the quarterly philanthropic report for our new Cancer Research Foundation. My phone chimed on the desk. It was a text from Mr. Adler. The Idaho land acquisition is complete. The old farm has been fully restored. I smiled, locking my phone. Through my floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretched out below me, glittering under the warm afternoon sun. My office door opened softly. Martha walked in, carrying a tray with a fresh cup of Earl Grey tea and a warm cinnamon scone. Your afternoon tea, Mr. Wesley, Martha smiled, setting the tray on my desk. And your father called from the country club. He said he beat Mr. Adler by 2 strokes on the back 9. I laughed, a rich, genuine, unburdened sound that filled the bright office space. Tell him I'll match his score this weekend, I said, picking up my teacup. As Martha walked out, I looked at the sleek digital clock on my wall. It read 8 p.m. I opened my laptop, pulled up my personal account, and navigated to the luxury horology site I had browsed a year ago. The limited edition $50,000 timepiece was sitting in my virtual cart. I clicked authorize purchase. The screen flashed a bright, vibrant green. Transaction confirmed. Payment processed. No permission needed. No explanations required. No leash to tighten. I closed the laptop, took a slow sip of my warm tea, and looked out over the endless, glowing lights of a world that was finally truly mine.